Let's talk about going to hell. Here's a chart of the demons of the Goetia and the angels of the Shemhamferish and the tarot cards that uh, house them, give them an apartment building to live in. And today is the 8th of February, which is the last day of the second decan of Aquarius, which is the Six of Swords. Six of Swords is a pretty damn good card, actually. One of the few sword cards you're not completely freaked out when they appear in a personal reading of some kind. But let's just follow down where it says Aquarius, and right under that it says 20 or 10 to 20 degrees. And then there's a 6. That's the Six of Swords. And then you see the word swords under that. And right there are two columns, black columns with white lettering, right under that Six of Swords. And it is the two spirits, Asmodee and Belial. Asmodee is assigned to as a day spirit of that decan, and Belial, a night spirit of that decan. Now, does that mean you can only whip up and talk to these guys in the day or night? Not really. At least I found it doesn't. I'm just as successful and just as unsuccessful whether I do them day or night. Now, if you've read My Life with the Spirits, you know that there's a chapter where that's titled Never Share a Fiend with a Friend. And it was a comedy of errors, magical story of when a friend of mine and I presumed, here's the whole chart there. And those are the Shemhamferish, the Hebrew letters that create the angels of the Shemhamferish. And their names in Hebrew and their names in English. So anyway, there's that. And it was truly a comedy of errors and a sort of a psychosexual excuse me, I dropped something. A psychosexual industrial accident. If those words have ever gone together before. I just wanted to read a short little thing. I've got two emails yesterday that I answered. It would have taken me too much time to answer them from scratch, and besides, I answered them in an earlier writing, and I just sort of said, "Look, read this, and this will answer your question." And the question concerned somebody who's concerned about going to hell. Not so much going to hell as punishment for a life misspent, but going to hell to talk to demons and work with spirits and demons that are considered infernal spirits. This is our friend Andromalius there, and this is sort of thing a magician would wear to whip up Andromalius to help return some stolen goods or something. Uh, but the person was concerned about raising a spirit uh, from so-called hell into your living room temple. He said, I want to go there. I'd like to visit them on their turf. And so it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around the concept that, well, I think you're already on there. You're already there, you know. Uh, and I gave the example in the book about just go to the sleaziest uh, bar in the roughest part of town at about 1:45 in the morning, just before closing. If you want to go to hell, you'll see all the demons you want uh, there. But anyway, I have been so fortunate in my life to meet and to know and to be uh, instructed by. I can't really say I took formal lessons, but I've got to witness uh, masterful Goetic or Solomonic magicians at work. Not at the work where I was an accountant, but them working. And very early on, Constance and I both were privileged to have a masterful lodge member uh, who showed how wonderful and beautiful the ceremony is, and that how low magic is not so low after all. But anyway, back to this thing about hell. There's all sorts of ways to look at hell, and I got to sort of walk carefully, because part of the thing that makes Goetic evocation work, at least for some people, is the fact that you actually buy into the fact that there's a God up there that you have to ask permission to be a representative of, and there's a demon and infernal spirits down there, and there's actually a there and a there, okay, and a here. And it's kind of difficult for modern magicians to buy into that sort of medieval way of looking at things. But part of the triggering mechanism that you have inside yourself that makes this kind of magic work gets triggered by the fact that or your ability to at least temporarily buy into that objective reality of the situation. So yeah, I don't want to spoil or make anybody feel not confident in this kind of work, because they have a more agnostic or atheistic worldview. But anyway, that being said, after years of doing Goetic evocation and working with it, about as by the book as I possibly could for a number of years, with the same Hebrew letter pecking order, divine order, snake type thing around uh, forming my circle and all of the classic conjurations right out of the book and things like. After doing it as well as I could, okay, to be a good by the book Goetic magician, and I have to admit, uh, sometimes it was kind of successful, and sometimes it just freaking blew up in my face. Uh, but it didn't feel like I was doing anything other than playing magician. Does does that make sense? Uh, just like an actor, Harrison Ford plays Indiana Jones. Okay, yeah, but there's probably only really moments where he is Indiana Jones, which is kind of the method acting, uh, process. But that's another story. Uh, and so I started to just kind of relax and get comfortable with who I am and what I know, and do my Goetia, do my Solomonic magic from that position. And so, well, here's what I said many years ago in the Demons Are Our Friends article. Um, the Elvis Levy quote: "These their faces and their shapes are terrible and strange. These devils, by my might, to angels I will change." That's excuse me. "These nameless horrors I address without affright. On them will I impose my will, the law of light." That kind of says it all right there. But let me see. I feel that Goetic evocation can be an important part of the modern magician's arsenal of skills. First and foremost, it requires that the magician establish a vital link with the higher consciousness. Call it God, the holy guardian angel, the higher self, the superconscious mind, or whatever. Secondly, in order to understand its subtleties and wield its power, the magician is forced to confront important emotional issues and character defects that, left unresolved, will continue to hinder his or her spiritual progress. Even in a clinical setting, such confrontations are seldom pleasant. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't characterize any Goetic ceremony that I've ever done as being pleasant and without a bit of painful soul-searching confrontations. But I digress. Finally, equilibrium must be achieved in all aspects of the magician's life, balancing the higher spiritual aspirations against the problems and challenges of everyday living. Properly executed, this is not only a powerful magic, but a recipe for good mental health. As far as the evocation technique itself is concerned, and this is where most magicians get bogged down. You're torn between, I want to do it by the book, and the fact that the book doesn't mean all that much to me personally. Okay. I'll jump ahead and just cut to the chase and say it's the formula that is revealed in the by the book procedure. the formula. And if you can study the classic evocations and conjurations and stuff, you could study them enough to get a sense of what the formula is, what it's trying to do inwardly with you, what it's trying to trigger, what it's trying to stimulate in the magician. Then you're on your way to figuring out, well, what is it for me that triggers those same things? What's the formula? As far as the evocation technique itself is concerned, I believe it's purely a matter of artistic taste. There are those whose respect for tradition and sense of art demands that every step of the evocation be executed precisely as outlined in the Sloan manuscripts. Traditional evocations are a thrill to behold. The reader who's been lucky enough to witness an evocation conducted by Carol Polk Runyon in Southern California has seen a master at work. And if you've seen people that Polk has trained, studied under Polk, you're also looking at masters. Personally, I do not use the classic versions of the conjurations and constraints. I should say I no longer use the classic versions of the conjurations and constraints, nor do I protect my circle with the various Chrislmew holy names. I believe for me to identify with mythological characters I do not admire, or guard my circle with the names of gods I do not worship, would not only be hypocritical, but also dangerous. I do, however, acknowledge and incorporate key elements that make this form of magic work. And I wrote this many, many years later. I do even less now, okay? I use the circle and triangle surrounded by words and holy names sacred to me. But it's really funky now, okay? It's just a silk cord that makes a 9-foot circle. And the triangle is just a broken down one of those segmented yardsticks that I just form into a triangle. So, but anyway, surrounded by holy names and words sacred to me. There's just a few of my thelemic deity names that I either put on pieces of paper or little placards if I'm home, because I do this when I travel. Okay. I utilize talisman displaying the spirit sigil, just like this. Okay, still always do that. And the standard pentagrams and hexagrams of Solomon on my vestments. So I'll whip up one of these, and I'll whip up a hexagram that I'll somehow put on my probably sweatpants and sweatshirt. I ceremonially bathe and dress. I do that. I purify, consecrate, banish, and open the temple with an appropriate ceremony. I do that. I induce a trance of righteous authority by recitation of the Gnostic Creed and the anthem from Crowley's Gnostic Mass. I believe in one secret and ineffable Lord, and in one star in the company of stars, of whose fire we are created, and to which we shall return. That, okay. It's from memory. It gets me in the zone, okay? And getting in the zone is a big part of touching the strata of consciousness where the spirits, where the demons exist. I recite a customized version of the preliminary invocation of the Goetia. That's from the Bornless ritual. I don't even do that anymore. But I did for a long time. Okay. I conjure in the Enochian language with the first call and a brief Enochian summons. Why do I do that? Why am I mixing Enochian in it? Because in the back of Crowley's own uh, Key of Solomon, Lesser Key of Solomon, he wrote the conjurations, he translated them into Enochian. And finally, in his Goetia, he hand wrote in the front cover and the back cover simply the first and second Enochian call. When I discovered that, I said, okay, it opens up something that Crowley thought was appropriate to be opened up for Goetic work. I conjure in the Enochian language with the first call and a brief Enochian summons. Now, reciting Enochian or the angelic language also gets you in the zone. And by the time I've gone through all of this, I'm feeling like the magician that I am. And until you're feeling like the magician that you are, you're not ready to proceed with this kind of magic. And a brief Enochian summons, something like Old Vanua Zakam Ilsgay, whatever the names is. I welcome the spirit at its appearance. Now, it's not necessary for you to see the spirit to know that it has arrived. Be sensitive to the feel of another consciousness in the room, like when a dog or a cat is watching you. Give it a brief, unambiguous order and a time limit on its execution, and demand from the spirit an oath that it will be carried out. Give it a license to depart after I tell it that I will be a kind and generous master as long as it is faithful and serves me. I also inform the spirit that should it prove disobedient, I will punish it and, if necessary, destroy it. I banish and wait till all vestiges of a spooky feeling disappears. And that's where you really have to kind of trust your gut feeling. If it still feels spooky in the room, it's spooky in the room. Banish until that spooky feeling, I say in my technical talk. Keep the spirit sigil in a prepared container and watch for signs of it working on my behalf. If it fails to execute the charge in the prescribed time, if it fails, I conjure it again and torture its sigil in a fire while I remind it of its original agreement. And I got that thing out the other day here, and I showed it to you. Oh, I thought it was handy enough to, I guess it's, let's see here. I guess it's poised to go back to its safe home. Uh-oh. Don't you worry your pretty little head. Here it is right on the top. I torture it in its little box. Okay. You don't want to get to this point. Okay. getting to this point, you're almost saying, you know, I'm probably not making a good connection with this guy. Okay, but but if you do get to that point, you put it in one of these and seal it with the proper seal. And but anyway, okay. Torture its sigil in a fire while I remind it of its original agreement. Failing again, I conjure it one more time, destroy its seal completely, and never acknowledge its existence again. Note, you will soon run out of spirits if you demand outrageous or unreasonable things. The book outlines what these fellows do. Don't be a complete jerk. Because when it comes to this, you're not only torturing this guy, you're torturing you, too. I've discovered it's unwise to evoke a spirit to solve a problem that I'm positive I've exhausted all other avenues of resolution until I've exhausted them all. If you want to hurt someone, it's much more effective and far more painful just to punch him in his or her nose and take the consequences. Asking a Goetic spirit to do it for you only reveals to the demon that you are a coward and unworthy of faithful service. I can't claim that every evocation has been a success. On the contrary, I've had quite a few blow up in my face. In fact, these failures have been more instructive than the successes. I confess that on more than one occasion, the operation succeeded superbly in bringing out the very worst in me and forced me to deal with the unpleasantness right there on the spot. In the final analysis, that's exactly what this kind of magic is supposed to do. Back to that Eliphas Levi poem. These are the phantoms, pale of mine astounded view, yet none but I their blasted beauty can renew. For to the abyss of hell I plunge without affright. On them will I impose my will, the law of light. I've been privileged in my life to meet a number of individuals whom I consider to be, by any definition, great magicians. Some are venerable stars in the magical firmament whose names are familiar to many in our subculture. Most, however, are ordinary women and men who have quietly achieved illumination, and with great art are proceeding to execute their wills upon the world. A character trait they all have in common is an almost self-effacing refusal to hide their flaws and their shortcomings. In fact, the magic of their lives appears to be built upon their ability to transmute these liabilities into assets. Never veiling their vices in virtuous words, these modern magi seek for truth even in their own naughtiness. They do not run from their demons or attempt to destroy them. Instead, they seize them one at a time, force them to recognize who's boss, clean them up, give them real energy to eat, and real jobs to do. King Solomon, by tradition, the grand master of this magical tradition, is said to have built the great temple of God with the organized labor of demons. this lusty and sincere man of God who fearlessly plumbed the infernal realms for the glory of his deity is indeed an appropriate icon for the magical art that bears his name. I have a feeling that if we were to conjure Solomon to visible appearance today and ask him how he achieved such perfection, the wise wizard would answer simply by telling us all to go to hell. Okay, that's it for Thursday. I will hopefully see you tomorrow. If this thing played and you could hear it okay, I never know. Uh, until then, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.